Hello and welcome back to the Google Workspace Update podcast from Strawberry 7. My name is Adam.
And my name is Adam.
We're here every week to bring you the latest updates of everything happening in the world of Google Workspace. Remember that this podcast is available in audio format from your regular podcast provider and also in video format on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Strawberry7.
Coming up on the show today,
we have 5 updates for you today. They're quite short updates, but we've got updates to Google Drive, Google Sheets, Google Docs, Sheets and Slides in one update there, Google Meet and Google Sheets. Now, as always, there is a link to the document that we read from, and that is in the podcast and the video description. That contains some more detailed information, along with relevant links, some lovely pictures, and some moving graphics showing you some of these features in action. So we encourage you to go and have a look at that. So, let's get to it.
On with the show. Right, so first up this week, we have a little updatelet to Google Drive. So, improving multi-instance support for the Google Drive Android app. So, last year Google announced multi-instance support on Google Drive, which is a feature that gives you better insights to your files by allowing you to have 2 Drive app windows open side by side on a large screen Android device. Now, Google is improving this experience by adding multi-account support, which lets a single user have 2 instances of the Drive app open side by side on a single device, showing content from 2 different Google accounts. With this update, you can preview a file from one account in one instance while navigating through the folders of the secondary account in the other instance.
Excellent. Well, this is yet again another update to these large screen sort of devices on Android that we've seen recently. We've actually seen quite a few of these updates, haven't we, Adam, come through recently?
Yes, there may be another one on its way too.
Yeah, I'm sure they're going to make some more in the near future. And when we say large screen Android devices, I think these are kind of either the larger sort of phones or those fold out phones, aren't they? Like the Z Fold or whatever it's called.
Yes, or a tablet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a tablet. And this is very nice. And what I think is very powerful about this is the fact that you can have 2 different profiles open at the same time. It's quite clever for the app to be able to open both of those profiles simultaneously. And there's a nice picture here showing an example of 2 of those profiles open side by side. So very good for people who are working in multiple profiles in Google Chrome and being able to use those 2 different profiles at the same time. When can we expect to see this coming out, Adam?
Okay, so this is available right now for rapid release, but scheduled release started on April the 28th.
Great. Okay, so people will be able to see that very soon then. I think it's today, yeah. Or time of recording anyway. By the time you guys get this, you'll that will be out as an update. Thank you very much, Adam. What have we got next?
Next up, we have our first Google Sheets update from this week. So you can now autofill using a mouse on the Google Sheets Android app. So following the recent announcement of full mouse support for the Google Sheets app on Android, Google is introducing mouse autofill capabilities. With this update, you can autofill by dragging or double-clicking a selection handle using a mouse in Google Sheets.
Oh, okay. So, again, something you've been able to do pretty much forever on desktop versions of Google Sheets and Excel and things like that by sort of auto-filling with a mouse, but now is available on those Android devices. And we did, I mean, it's said in the update, but we had it in our podcast recently, didn't we, about the introduction of the mouse support on Android devices, which we were saying at the time, weren't we, Adam? We were guessing those are kind of quite universal to Bluetooth mice rather than it having to be a specific mouse.
Yes, I've actually learned something myself with this update. So I've often used the autofill by dragging. I think that's a really, really handy feature, particularly actually if you have any I want to say sums, any equation, any formula, that's the word. If you have any formula in a cell, to copy that formula across to apply to other cells, that is so helpful. It's a great feature. But it was the other one where you can just double click on a cell's corner to autofill the rest.
Yeah.
I actually didn't realise that was a feature. So I've often used the dragging to autofill, but I didn't realise you could double click in a cell to autofill as well. So that's something that I've learned from this update.
Yeah, it is actually a really good little sort of feature that's always been in Google Sheets. And for anybody who wants to see more details of how that works, if like Adam, you're unfamiliar with how that works, there's a lovely little moving graphic here on the document that we've linked to in the description, which shows you how to do that. And I agree with Adam, that's a very nice feature that you can use in certain circumstances. Lovely. And I think this is kind of available now, isn't it, Adam?
Yes, that's right. So this is available on rapid release right now, but scheduled release is planned for April the 25th. Oh, in fact, sorry, it started on April 25th, so so it will be available right now.
Yeah, okay, brilliant. That's great. Thank you, Adam. What have we got next, please?
So next up, we have an update to Google Docs, Sheets, and Slides. So enhancing the tool discovery in Google Docs, Sheets, and Slides. So Google is rolling out an enhanced tool finder at the top of Google Docs, Sheets, and Slides to make it easier for users to discover commonly used tools and features. These refined tool finding capabilities aim to help you quickly locate relevant features or functionality using your own words. So, for example, if you search who last viewed this document, the activity dashboard will surface. If you open the enhanced tool finder immediately after you create a file, you'll notice suggestions for common actions users take when preparing a new document, spreadsheet, or presentation, such as page setup, drop down meeting notes in Google Docs, or insert rows or columns, merge cells, and freeze rows or columns in Google Sheets, and also page settings, spell check, and edit theme in Google Slides. Once you begin editing, you can find recent actions by clicking the tool finder for easy access to your previously used features. Prior to this launch, you could find features by navigating to help, but then search the menus. Now that will redirect you to the enhanced tool finder. After a short transition period, the redirect will be removed and the tool finder will live permanently in the toolbar. Whether you're exploring collaboration, smart canvas, or formatting features, the enhanced tool finder will save you time and streamline your flow of work by helping you find the exact features you're looking for a much quicker experience.
I think this is a very useful update, and the video which goes in the document here showing people how to use it is really nice and gives some really good examples. And I think we were saying before we recorded, weren't we, Adam, that this seems to be where these systems are moving to now, with this more artificial intelligence based searching and interacting with these tools, so that rather than having to know, as it says in the example there, that it's called activity dashboard, you can just in plain English say who viewed this document last, who edited it last, who interacted with it last, or whatever you want to put in that sort of search. The other thing I really like that's shown in the video here about this feature is the fact that when you type in an action or something that you're trying to do, for example, freezing the first row in a spreadsheet, it's one of the first things I usually always do when I'm going into a spreadsheet. When you type it in and the action comes up, it actually does it, rather than just sort of
sending you a link onto how you could do that, which you'd then have to read up how to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's really nice that it actually just does it for you, and you could almost use this menu sort of almost exclusively, I suppose, to do things. It's almost removing the contextual menu where you're just typing in what you want it to do. So it's a very interesting, it seems like a small thing, but it's quite an interesting move into that different way of interacting.
Absolutely. So I hadn't really previously used this feature because it was kind of hidden behind the help drop down, which that's not really an area that I generally go to with any programs, to be honest. But having it there on the toolbar, I think, will be really, really helpful. Something I'm curious about. So every now and then, I've wanted to do something in Sheets, but I've not really known the name of what that action is called within Sheets. So I'm going to be really curious to see how intuitive and how helpful this is going to be to help me find the tool, or to help me find the action that I'm looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what's so nice about it is the fact that you don't need to know the name because not everybody knows it's called the activity dashboard or anything like that. So, yeah, I think that's a really nice advancement. And the way they've kind of put it within the menu is very nice as well. I wonder if they were holding out on this update because this formed part of that design materials 3 move that we saw recently and talked about in one of the podcasts, where they kind of changed all of the design and look of Google Sheets. Maybe this reactive contextual menu is part of that design materials 3 system that they launched recently. So what's I think we've got some additional details here as well, haven't we?
Yes, yeah, just a quick additional notes to add. So you'll always be able to get to the Find and Replace tool at the bottom of search results, which will open with your query pre-populated.
I don't think I've ever used Find and Replace tool at the. Oh, I suppose
I have. I find that really helpful actually, but you always need to be really careful when using it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sorry, I don't mean I've never used Find and Replace tool. I've used that loads, but what I mean is I was just going to say I've never used it at the bottom, but I suppose I think I've maybe used it once where I've gone into search results and then gone to it through there. What I mean is I usually go to it kind of directly. I think. Yeah. So I think I do it that way. So that's quite interesting. Interesting that they've kind of popped that in there as well as a sort of additional detail. I wonder what impact the Find and Replace tool specifically had on this new contextual menu.
Maybe it just kind of adds to just making all of the features just easier to find.
Yeah, maybe just saying that specific part is still in the same place because it's to do with. I suppose the menu context now looks like a search itself, so maybe they're kind of pointing out that if you want to actually search within the sheet, that's still within the search area. Maybe that's what Google's trying to sort of explain there.
I was just going to very quickly add an extra bit or an extra add-on for this update, which I would love to see. I don't think it would. Well, it'd be interesting to see how it works. But something that I would personally love to see is if all your common features that you use on Google Sheets on the whole, not on one specific sheet, if they just always stay there, or if you could pin key things in there, say you always use one specific font, or you always use one specific color, or something like that, or your alignment you always tend to use in one particular way. If you can add those there, almost as like your favorites, pretty much. So I think that would be a really good thing to include in that.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely start to see that with the whole sort of suggested search and these. We've seen these search tools learning before in Google, haven't we, and bringing that up. So I think that's a very good point, Adam, and I think they're going to. I wouldn't be at all surprised if we saw that in one of the future updates. The other thing as well is I've actually just noticed, talking about the Find and Replace, I've noticed, I think that's why Google's included it, because if you notice in that moving graphic, when it's typing in an action, you can actually see it says Find in Document at the bottom of the context menu. So I think that's why they've included that as a specific sort of point there in that update. I think it will definitely learn what you're going to sort of interact with more. I wonder if we'll start to see as well it almost learning the most common things that you do and suggesting it when you open a spreadsheet. So, for example, I'd love it if when I opened a spreadsheet, it said, do you want to freeze the top row, make the top row bold, and do whatever? That would be really useful.
You'll barely even need to do any typing. You'll just start clicking, say yes, boom, there's your spreadsheet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, it's like ChatGPT, isn't it? You don't need to bother writing a book. ChatGPT just does it for you. I don't think there's any kind of control over this, is there? But what's the rollout phase and what's the availability here?
Yeah, that's right. There's no admin control for this, but rapid release, there's going to be a gradual rollout which started on April the 25th, and scheduled release there's also going to be a gradual rollout which is starting on May the 10th.
Okay, so this one's a little bit down the line then, because for anybody new listening, those gradual rollouts are up to about 15 days after the rollout date. So we'll start to see that soon. Hopefully, we're on rapid release, for example, and at time of recording, it's the 28th, and I don't think we've seen this feature come through yet, for example. So if you haven't seen that come through, don't worry, it's on that gradual release. And what's the availability on this, Adam?
So this update is going to be available to all Google Workspace customers, as well as legacy G Suite Basic and Business customers. This is also going to be available to users with a personal Google account.
Fantastic. That's brilliant. So right across the board there, lovely. What have we got next, Adam?
So next up, we've got a Google Meet update. So there's now full HD in Google Meet video calls. So for select Google Workspace editions, you can set your Google Meet video resolution to 1080p. This resolution is available on the web when using a computer with a 1080p camera and enough computing power in meetings with 2 participants. The new high definition resolution is off by default, but eligible users will be prompted before entering the meeting about the new 1080p option, or it can be turned on or off in the settings menu. Just note that additional bandwidth is required to be able to send 1080p video, but Meet will automatically adjust the resolution if the device is bandwidth constrained.
Okay, so that's good to know. So there's a bit of flexibility there with the bandwidth. And interestingly, when we joined this Meet, it actually asked me if I wanted to put 1080 video resolution on my camera, and so I said yes, because I thought, oh, okay, I didn't realise it was a new feature, so I turned it on for this meeting. So it'll be interesting to see what the resolution is like when it exports the Meet recording.
Yes. When I joined this meeting, it did not ask me if I wanted to turn this feature off, so clearly my face is not HD ready, but it may actually just be because I'm pretty sure I'm not using a 1080p camera.
Yeah. Maybe the camera's not quite up to it. I'm sure your face is 1080p ready, Adam. I would disagree with you on that. Your hair certainly is looking magnificent as always. So, good. Well, I think that's a really nice update there. Especially, I think for when you're recording meetings. You know, if you can record in 1080p, then that could potentially be very useful in certain circumstances.
Something that I find a bit interesting about this, we might need to do a test. Well, actually, you'd need to do the test on my behalf, as I can't use this feature myself just yet. So it mentions about meetings with 2 participants. Does that imply that you would not be able to use it if you're in a meeting by yourself, if you just wanted to record yourself doing a quick presentation or something along those lines?
Yeah.
Or what about more than 2 participants? It's just a bit surprising. It picked the number 2.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah, when you were reading that out, I thought, oh, 2 participants. So exactly the same questions as you've just posed. I thought, what happens if there's 3? Because it asked me when I joined the meeting and you were already in the meeting, but obviously somebody else could have come in. So does it drop the resolution back down when someone else comes in? I'm not too sure exactly how that works. So it'll be interesting when we go on to our team meeting on Wednesday to see if we get the same option, because obviously both of you will be in the meeting potentially all 3 of you will be in the meeting when I join. So it'll be interesting to see whether I get the same option. So
I'd be very surprised if you didn't. I think maybe Google was just maybe throwing in a few words for this update, like just to bulk it out a little bit, because it's basically you can now use HD in Google Meet. So I think that maybe they were just bulking out the update a little bit to say that. I'll be very, very surprised if you couldn't use it if there were more than 2 or even just 1, to be honest. But as I say, in the update with the information given to us by Google, they mention 2.
Yeah, absolutely. They've done that before, haven't they? They've kind of put little bits in their updates which are maybe not quite clear, and we've sort of discussed them before. But I think
or get
you're
a
right.
bit creative with their wording.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they do get a bit creative or liberal with their wording. That's for sure. Yeah. Okay, so how do people get started with this? So I think it's pretty straightforward, isn't it?
Yes, so there is no admin control for this feature, but if you wanted some more information, Google's Help Center has more information regarding the bandwidth usage for 1080p video calls. So I had a quick look at that. Just so you know, you need up to 3.6 megabits per second for your internet speed, which is... It's not a lot, to be honest, so it doesn't look like there's too much demand on your network in order to use this. For the end users, this feature is off by default, but can be enabled by the user. I would actually love it to go the other way around. I always use the highest resolution or the highest quality for these things where available. So I would love the option to say stick it on by default, but by all means, if there's network issues, drop it down to the capabilities of the bandwidth at the time. But I would personally actually love this feature just to be on by default.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It would be, I wouldn't be surprised if we see an update in the near future where Google looks at your bandwidth and it decides what resolution it's going to put your camera on. Kind of like the way on YouTube it decides what resolution it's going to show you the video at based on your connection and your bandwidth and things like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if that comes through in the future. I just wanted to say a quick note on Google's bandwidth requirements there. I don't know what your thoughts are, Adam, but personally, I think that is very, very ambitious. 3.6 meg connection for 1080p, I think is
Find on the floor if you look hard enough.
Yeah, I think it's very ambitious. I mean, for anybody new listening, I used to have 6 meg on my connection when I was doing this video. For anybody who saw...
I'm surprised you had that much.
I know, right? It was just luxury when I had 6 meg. And for anybody watching the videos on our YouTube channel, or you go back and look at the videos, my video feed was just horrendous when it was on the recording, because it was only 6 meg. Now, I'm on a gig now, so it's much better, and there's no problem with the video recording, there's no problem with lag or anything like that. But to say that 3.6 meg is enough for 1080p, I just think that's very ambitious. I would times that by 10, personally, and say that you definitely, to have it stable and to have the reduction of lag and to have everything else working, I think you'd need at least like 30 meg.
Yes, I would also say if anybody has less than 3.6 megabits per second, then it may be worth having a conversation with your service provider and seeing what you can do about that, because that is appalling if you don't have that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for anybody joining us from America, it can be quite common to have really, really sort of comparatively low internet speeds.
There can definitely be geographical issues if the services if it's just not available where you are, then you can only work with what you've got, which was the issue that you had up until very recently. I know my father, where he was, he only had up to like half a megasecond or something for up until really quite recently, actually, which I was a bit surprised about. And yeah, he didn't have any control beyond that. But if you do have greater options available, I'd strongly encourage you to utilise that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's just becoming a requirement more and more now to need faster internet connection, even to just view a basic website or something like that. Okay, and what's the sort of rollout here, Adam, on this feature?
Okay, so for a rapid release, there is a gradual rollout which started on April the 25th. For scheduled release, there is a gradual rollout, which is starting on May the 4th, Star Wars Day.
Is indeed, yeah. And this is a really good example of these gradual rollouts. So going back to the previous update, that was 25th release with gradual rollout. We haven't seen that on rapid release yet, but this feature, 25th gradual rollout, I have seen that on Google Meet. So it gives you an idea of how these gradual rollouts can be quite unpredictable as to how Google are releasing them across the different parts there. So don't worry if you haven't seen this feature yet, it will start to roll out. And what's the availability here?
Okay, so this is available to Google Workspace Business Standard, Business Plus, Enterprise Starter, Enterprise Standard, Enterprise Plus, the Teaching and Learning Upgrade, Education Plus, Enterprise Essentials, and Frontline customers. This is also going to be available to Google One subscribers with 2 terabytes or more of storage space with eligible devices.
Okay, that's very interesting. That's probably the first time we've ever seen an availability for Google One subscriptions. So that's, yeah, I mean, it makes sense because it's another one of those enhanced features on Google Meet, kind of like recording and noise reduction and things like that we've seen before, where it's only available to the sort of elevated tiers. So that's quite interesting to see. Thank you very much, Adam. What have we got next? I think it's our last update, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So next up we have another Google Sheets update. So introducing additional SmartShip functionality in Google Sheets. So earlier this year, Google added place chips, finance chips, and expanded date capabilities to Google Sheets in the latest innovations in Smart Canvas. Google is now adding even more features to help you access and include rich context setting information directly into Sheets. previously in Google Docs, Google is expanding YouTube Chips to Sheets to help you more easily manage YouTube content. This feature allows you to add YouTube data such as the title, description, and video preview directly into your spreadsheet cell. Simply copy and paste a YouTube link into the cell, hover over it, and click the chip option included in the Replace URL hover card. You can also now insert multiple smart chips and text into a single cell using the @ menu. This enhances your ability to quickly preview and interact with even more context-setting information in Google Sheets.
It's a really cool update. I think Adam was sort of struck on quite an interesting thing when we were discussing this before recording. What was it you said, Adam, about YouTube?
Well, yeah, so I'm not too sure just how frequently people are actually putting YouTube links into their spreadsheet. Maybe if you're wanting to make a spreadsheet of all of your Google Workspace updates, your favourite podcasts in ranked order, something like that, and you just wanted to add a link into all of our YouTube videos into those, youtube.com/strawberry7, then that could be a very good example of where you could use this feature and you could convert all of those links into chips. But beyond that, I'm not too sure how frequently I put YouTube links into a Google Sheets, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a bit of an interesting one. It's like a couple of recent updates that we've seen from Google, isn't it? We've sort of thought they're quite nice, but I just don't know quite how requested they are or how much people are going to use them. It's cool. It's got a very, very nice interface. I really like the way that you can paste the link in and then just in one button you can replace it with a chip. I really like that that interface and that way of doing it.
So I did this within Google Docs not all that long ago. I think it was probably a couple of episodes ago with the documents that we include in all of our podcasts. So there was a quick YouTube link in there, and I made that as a chip. So I think it's going to be a very, very similar experience to that. I literally pasted in the YouTube link, hovered over it, select chip, which then just turned it into a chip. So then that was great. So then you could then just click on it to have a quick preview. It was almost like a window in window. You didn't have to go directly to YouTube's website to actually view the video. You could just view it directly in the document. So that was quite handy and easy to use.
Yeah, I think it's a nice interface. And the other update that they've done here, where you can put multiple chips into a single cell, that's actually really cool. I think that's a really interesting update.
I think that could be very handy, yes. I think that is actually quite a cool and quite a practical update. I probably wouldn't actually use it that often myself, but I can probably think of some instances where this is really helpful for other users.
Absolutely. I think it could be very, very useful in certain regards here. I mean, the example that they've given there where they're putting some people chips effectively into a single cell, that could be very useful. And I think if you're maybe combining that with the recent calendar chips that we saw as well, that would be quite, potentially quite useful.
Yeah. So maybe you're using Google Sheets to plan everything around an event, something like that. So you can work out all your finances. You can stick your calendar chips in. You could stick your contact cards of who's going and things like this. So something along those lines, I could really see where a lot of the Google chips, the smart chips even, can be really handy if you utilize all of them together.
Yeah, it's a very nice update, this. And once again, for anybody interested in what this looks like, there's some lovely pictures. There's a picture showing what the YouTube one looks like and a sort of moving graphic showing the multiple smart chips in a single cell. So I just wanted to say, with the graphic, I'm a little bit curious. So next, where it says replace URL, there's a couple of little stars. So in my neck of woods, that means it's a shiny Pokemon, which is really, really rare, and it's definitely the one that you need to get. But I'm a bit curious, in Google's context, is that just there to indicate this? Look at this shiny new feature, or what? I don't know. It's it's interesting. I think it's just a graphic which is saying it does something, like like that's the action or something like that. Because I don't think you could probably click on that. But yeah, I don't think it's got anything to do with Pokemon personally. So. I called it Pokemon that time, Adam. First time as well. So
Well done.
I know, right? It's only taken me about 20 years. Okay, how do people get started with this, and what's sort of rollout here?
Okay, so there's no admin control for this feature, but the rollout, so rapid release, there is a gradual rollout, which started on April the 26th, and scheduled release, there is also a gradual rollout, which is starting on May the 10th.
Interesting. So we've got a lot of these updates are on gradual rollouts, which is not something that we've seen recently, is it? A lot of things we've seen, they've been available whilst we've been releasing the podcast, but these are a bit more ahead of time and they're on gradual releases, so it must be a bit intensive for Google, maybe.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Yeah. What's the availability here?
Okay, so this update is going to be available to all Google Workspace customers, as well as legacy G Suite, Basic and Business customers. This is also going to be available to users with a personal Google account. So right across the board, available to everyone.
Oh, lovely. That's what we like to see. Available to everybody. That's it, everybody. That's everything that you need to know about all of the updates happening around Google Workspace. Remember that this podcast is available in audio format from your regular podcast provider and also in video format on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/strawberry7. Thank you very much for joining us this week.
We'll be back again next Monday with more updates.
Goodbye.
Bye!